Namaste from Norway, guys. My name is Arvind and welcome back to our YouTube channel. As an immigrant to Norway, irrespective of which country you are from, one thing you might have heard, and that is about Barnevernet, that is the child welfare services of Norway. There are some good and bad things which you might have heard about it. Since I'm not an expert in child welfare services, so I thought of talking to someone that is actually a colleague of mine who knows child welfare services in Norway bit more than me, I would say. So let's talk to Pernille Skotte, who is actually a colleague of mine at Oslomet. So we will ask some questions related to Barnevernet and how to raise a child in Norway from her. So hopefully you guys will find this video very useful to you if you are planning to raise your child in Norway.
Hi, I'm Pernille Skotte, and I work at the Department for Social Work, Child Welfare and Social Policy at Oslomet. Yes. With Arvind, is my colleague.
Yeah.
And Arvind has asked me to talk a little bit about Barnevernet today. And I think you did so because, as you introduced, the child welfare services is a contested field, I would say, or at least a field or an area of the welfare services which people might find a bit scary, perhaps.
Yeah, especially the immigrants.
Yeah, because I would say because a lot of people don't really know what it's about.
Yes.
And first of all, I would say that a lot of Norwegians are also kind of wary, because people in general don't really like to be to open the door to their family and have people scrutinize what you do with your children. You know, you want to be the expert in your own family, I suppose, don't you think?
Yeah, exactly.
So the child welfare services, like, just to say something in general about the child welfare services, it's a part of the welfare system. So I think being a part of the welfare system in a way says that it's supposed to be a support for families. It's also a low threshold service, which means that the child welfare services can be of help or assistance if you somehow have problems or challenges in your family when it comes to raising your children.
Okay.
So it's a low threshold service, and most of the services that the child welfare services provide is assistance.
Yeah, support.
So I just would say that. Now, I did have this statistics, I can't remember the statistics, but I think it's about 80% or even more, which is like supportive services, not the part that most people are afraid of, or familiar with, or a bit also anxious about.
Yeah.
And being anxious is, of course, normal, because, as I said initially, this part about being scrutinized and people coming into your home and questioning whether you're a good parent, especially if you're not really sure what they're assessing.
What they're assessing, exactly.
Yeah. So what is it they're assessing? The reason why the child welfare services does look into people's families is because they have received from somewhere, either from the school, from the child welfare services, from the Barnehage, childcare, from neighbors perhaps. Someone is
complained.
Not complained, I would say. Someone is.
Okay.
I would say someone is concerned about your child.
Okay.
About your child's well-being. So it's not these people are doing something wrong necessarily, but I'm wondering if this child is okay.
Okay.
And even we could do that. You know, I'm thinking a friend of mine called me and said, so my neighbor, I hear all these noises, and they have a little child, and it sounds like there's some violence, and they're screaming, and I say to this friend of mine, I say, you should talk to them. Go knock on your neighbor's door. Because you can always contact Barnevernet, which is, you could do that. You could call them and you could say, I hear all these noises from my neighbor's apartment. What should I do? and you don't even have to tell them your name.
Okay.
But if you are concerned about the child, and if you're worried about talking to your neighbors, which I suppose you should do, because that's the best way to go about, isn't it? Isn't it like if you're concerned about
the child,
anyone, you would talk to them directly.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though it's a bit,
Yeah.
But it's probably the best thing.
Yeah.
Or you could call Barnevernet. What Barnevernet does is at least, first of all, they assess the concern.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this doesn't sound very serious.
Okay.
Like, that's kind of the first thing they can say. Or they could say, well, this could be serious. Let me just give them a call.
Mm-hmm.
And then they talk on the phone, and it could be, it could be just perfectly normal. And then they just, it's okay, The third level is they go visit you and kind of have a talk and perhaps talk to the child and just, checking out the situation. And even that could lead to like nothing.
Okay.
This is okay, And then it could turn out that the family is struggling with something and they can receive some sort of assistance.
Okay.
Until recently, this assistance would only be rendered if the family wanted the assistance. Now there are some levels of assistance that can actually be rendered even if you don't want them.
Yeah.
Because Barnevernet or the officials from Child Welfare Services think that the situation for this child it's of concern. Yeah. And to be of concern, I think it has to be quite serious.
Okay.
It's not like you do things differently from what we're used to. It must be something related to the well-being of the child or the development of the child. Of course, they're there. The law states that Child Welfare Services is there to protect the child, to ensure that the child is not maltreated, abused, neglected. So the threshold is quite, for what this is, it's quite high. But of course, sometimes one can be in doubt, and one can, they have to work with the family to figure out what to do and how the situation is. And then in more serious cases, it can be troubling. And that's where I wanted to talk a bit, because I'm thinking, in the most serious cases where there's actually a threat of losing custody over your child, for instance, I think perhaps sometimes it is very serious. Sometimes parents don't take care of their children.
Yeah.
And I think the Child Welfare Services are, of course, trying to detect these instances. And sometimes they're not able to talk with the parents adequately, or they're concerned about things and they don't get the communication going. Perhaps because the family is worried.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's something about the communication that doesn't work. And in these cases, one can perhaps experience that the Child Welfare Services take things more seriously than they actually are. And that's, of course, I can understand that that's a bit problematic.
But I have a question. I mean, when we had our child first, and then there are a lot of rumors going about. Rumors are like, you should not take your child out after 7 p.m. All of these. So nobody knows where to find the genuine information. Right. For example, how to raise a child. And so I'll come to that question afterwards. But so there are certain rumors. So is there a way that we can clarify these rumors with someone? Can we call, for example, Child Welfare Services?
You can.
That hold a seminar for all of the immigrants, something like that. Because it's like right now, maybe people are just scared of them, but that is not actually the way. So if they disseminate information and then, so it's basic some sort of a cultural thing. And for example, eating with hand is forbidden because Norwegian way is different and the other cultural way is different. So are all of these also like the concerns for Barnevernet, or it's just a rumor that is going on?
That's a rumor,
Okay.
Yeah, it's a rumor. Although it's a rumor, and increasingly the child welfare services are learning how to deal with cultural ways of raising children differently. So I think the threshold for reacting to difference it's just really changing. And the child welfare services have all these courses how to deal with the situations where there's concern in immigrant families, and they call it I don't know, they have these concepts for how they're doing this. So it's at least it's not supposed to be an issue, and you should never think that we cannot eat with our hands, for instance. That's certainly irrelevant. What they are concerned about is threats to the well-being of the child. If there's really, are the children well taken care of? Are they and abuse, for instance, maltreatment, these sorts of things? That's what they're concerned about. So that's what you shouldn't do to your children.
Yeah, that is
that's for everyone. Treat your children well. And I think it's a problem. Even me, I think, if the child welfare services were to call me with a concern about my children, I would feel threatened, and I would probably go into
defense.
Defense. And I wish I could say that's not a good idea, but it's so understandable.
Yeah, it's natural.
It's a human instinct, isn't it?
So it's like whenever, suppose you are driving and police catches you, so you are at a backseat, So it's the same way. That is the kind of an image Barnevernet.
Yeah.
Another rumor which I have heard is that sometimes, again, this is a rumor, I believe, that if suppose some of the kids, if they are like notorious, so they can just complain about their parents that they hit me. But in reality, that has not happened. And then Barnevernet has intervened.
Yeah.
So how are these situations handled? Do they trust a 5 or 6-year-old, or do they try to, introspect and interrogate?
I think that's a very good question, actually, because I would like to say something else in general about the child welfare system, which I think might be like the root to these kinds of rumors, is that the child welfare services has, although it has a family focus, it also has a child-centric focus. And it's based on the Convention on the Rights of the Child and children's rights to participate. And according to the child welfare, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, all children are supposed to be heard. So, but what does that mean? It means that if there is a concern, the child welfare services are supposed to, by law, to talk with the child. They should be, and most often are, well equipped to understand when a child is
lying, or
lying. I don't know. When the child is just making things up. Because all 5-year-olds make things up, right? And I think if it's like really serious allegations, then it's usually not just what the child talks or says, but it's like injuries that are not normal. For instance, if you have to take your child to the doctor and it's broken, like lots of bones, and then the story about how this happened that the parents come with doesn't really match with the story and with the bruises on the child, for instance. But a child saying my parents hit me by itself should not be a problem. Let's say that a child, for instance, tells the teacher that my parents hit me. Then the child then the teachers have to talk to the child, and then they should talk to the parents. And that's kind of sort of where that is sorted. And if they're still concerned, they should talk to the child welfare services, but it doesn't mean that it has a real immediate effect and it's a big hassle and you lose your child. That's not how it works.
So now moving the focus from child welfare service to, because as far as I know, you also have 2 kids.
Yes, I have.
So you have passed that stage where we are right now, right?
Yeah.
So your kids are all grown up. So how should an immigrant, especially not from European background, should raise their child, or what are some peculiarities that we should know that this is how Norwegian is raising their child? How do you convince your child to do a particular thing? For example, if he or she is not listening to you, so what is that the magic thing?
That's also a good question, because I'm thinking this: if you are raised yourself, and your parents smacked you, for instance, when you were disobedient, then not necessarily, but I think what you imagine when you're raising your own children, that's something that's natural in a way. And in some settings, that's just illegal. And in a Norwegian setting, that's illegal. And so what you're saying, how do you make your children respect you in a way, isn't it?
Not necessarily respect, but you know what is, because you know what is good for your kid. For example, if he or she is not eating, or he or she is in a dangerous situation where you can assess but the child cannot assess. So how do you convince the kid to?
If the child is in, yes, I would.
Okay.
I would certainly do that. If the child is in a dangerous situation, I would take the child and I would take him away. Certainly. Absolutely. So it's not the fact it's not that you can't be physical with your child. It's just of course the parent most often knows exactly what's right, isn't it?
Exactly.
When the child is small. And then increasingly with age, the child is supposed to participate more and have their
know what is good or bad for her or him.
But it's always difficult, raising children in Norway is just as difficult as anywhere else. So
but when this is just out of inquisitiveness, so was it a Norwegian culture, say when you were being raised, were you smacked by your parents, or it has always been like that, no smacking at all?
No, I was not. I'm not really certain when the law was passed. Really sure 60s, 70s, 80s, but quite a long time ago. So it's kind of being uncultured in a way that's not what we do, and there's something that you just don't do, and I suppose and even it's illegal. So it's like you can't smack your child. It's just a lack of respect for the child, or it's like it's what do we call it? It's like it's crossing a boundary that you can't.
You should not.
You should do.
You have mentioned a very good point here. That is, there is a law and then there is a culture, right? So the law is enforced so that if a thing imbibed in your culture, like for example, I'll take the case of a seat belt. In India, nobody wears. That's not a culture. So there has to be a law. There is a law in Norway also, but there is a culture of wearing a seat belt. So I think so. Law enforces you to follow a particular thing, and then over the period of time, it becomes a culture. It imbibes in you. Right?
I think so. And your body knows what's right. It's what we in sociology call norms. It's not. It's written in the law, but it's also something that we practice, and we all know that this is how we practice. So, and sometimes that could be problematic as well. Imagine you get a visit from the child welfare services, and you do something differently. Then you need also to be able to explain why you do it and how you do it. If it's if it's problematic, if it's perceived to be problematic in some way. I think I could like to say. In Norway, we have a practice of being we call it intensive parenting. I don't know because you are a parent in Norway. And you see and you experience and you are a parent. You're parenting in Norway. And I don't know if you experience the same thing, but when I had children in Barnevernet, kindergarten, for instance, there's so many things you have to do. Oh my God, as a parent. You need to dress up your children in a particular way. You need to remember this and you need to remember this, and every day there's something new that you have to do, and you have to have this matpakke, and you have to have this. There's so many things you have to do. It's really quite exhausting. Like there's a carnival and you have to dress up your child, and there's this thing, and there's a tour, and then you have to put on more clothes and remember to fix everything, and so it's quite intensive being a parent in Norway, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, don't you agree?
We are, so I can't, maybe when I look it from outside, because we are experiencing it that now, and maybe so I think right now it's fine, but when you reflect upon it, then you feel.
Yeah.
So when you are in a journey, you don't
no, maybe it's just something you do.
Now it's in the routine, right?
Yeah.
So you have to do that. And then, so last few questions. The first is there any website or something where we can actually go and read more about it? Some resources about child welfare service?
You asked about this yesterday, and I checked with a colleague, and I checked a few sites, and I think the very best source is the Directorate for Children, Youth and Families. It's called Bufdir.
Bufdir, yeah.
BUFDIR. And you look up the English website, and it has all this information, exactly the questions that you're asking now, actually.
Okay.
How does it work? How does a case come about? How does one parent in Norway? There's even a site on how is that perceived and how is that done. And I think it's the public and official source, so you know that everything that's in there it's not made up.
Yeah, it's more genuine, and we can rely upon that.
I would. Yeah. So I would look at this. And if there are any concerns, Barnevernet, you can call them, and they should be of assistance. If you have any concerns, you can always call them.
Yeah.
And they will guide, and they will probably ease your mind.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. It's a welfare. It's supposed to be a welfare service.
Yeah, but I think over the past few years, it has been maybe some negative things about it, and then people are scared. That's my take on that. And
the last thing I would like to say about that is that there is a control system, which I think perhaps also could be nice to know, that there is, like, for instance, one thing that's happened recently is that the European Human Rights Courts, I don't know if you know about it, but the Norwegian Barnevernet have been on trial for some particular cases 11 cases or something, where they have been convicted. Can you say convicted? I don't know if the state can be convicted, at least.
I know that case.
Yeah, you know
that's
about some of them. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so they have pointed at a few critical issues about the practices of child welfare. And when this happened, the state takes this very seriously. And even as a result of this, they're changing the law.
Are happening.
They're happening reforms. So like on an overall level, there is a control system. And even on lower levels, there are control systems that control the practices of the child welfare services, so that there won't be any breaches of people's human rights, actually. Yeah.
And then any final words to the viewers? How to raise a child in Norway? I mean, that is
I'm not an expert. I have like 2 perfect children, but it's not because of me, it's because of them. So no, it was nice talking to you, and
same here. So I think and one fun fact, that because I think in 2014 there was a case against an Indian, and it went to a very high level.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, because I think our another colleague Eric, he was at that time working in child welfare, so he said he was very closely working with that case, but he said it's not okay to talk about it. I said no, it's fine.
True, yeah.
But the fun fact is that soon a Bollywood movie is coming about that case.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my!
I think next year it's going to be.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
So
Norway's going to come out really bad in that movie. Don't you think?
No, I don't know what it's going to be.
I don't know what are they going to show in the movie.
Yeah,
but we are quite excited to watch that movie.
Yeah, and what is it about?
It's going to be really interesting.
We can watch it together.
Yeah, we should.
The entire department. We should have it in Oslo.
That would be interesting.
But thank you for agreeing to this and speaking about it, because I think people need information like this, and it's a bit of a respite to know, especially where to knock the door when you are looking for information. Otherwise, you type on Google, you don't get anything.
No, it's true. A lot of information on the web is also very critical and a bit problematic, I think.
Because if you don't find the right source, you'll always find what I found out, always negative things about the Barnevernet. Yeah, so that is why I wanted to just have a little bit. Okay, so Penele, thanks a lot, and the link will be in the description of all of these things. So thanks again, and hope to see you soon in pedagogy course. That is where we met actually.
Yes, that's where.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it from my side. Namaste from Norway.